beautiful people. It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, I'm not gonna beat around the bush any longer. So you might notice that I've been gone for a few months, for a lot of the year, actually. And I've been promising this video for months now. And it's just now, finally, being released at the tail end of May. Why is that? Well, short answer, I've been busy working on multiple projects at the same time. Weird TV has been getting a lot of focus this year, and I apologize for not having my attention on both of the channels. And, you know, a lot of stuff has happened in my personal life that I don't want to get into for personal reasons. But anyways, yeah, 2024. That was a wild year, wasn't it? A lot of great things happened, a lot of crappy things happened, but it was the year we launched this series of Theater Talk, and Theater Talk has been really fun to do. 2024 was also a very interesting year for movie musicals, to say the least. And by interesting, I'd say not very good. Because a lot of movie musicals from 2024 are either forgettable or downright abysmal, with only one or two that I can genuinely say, honest to God, these are good movies. But regardless, it was still an interesting year for movie musicals. So today, at the tail end of May, that rhymed, I would like to say one last goodbye to 2024 before we move on to the future videos. This is every single movie musical from 2024 ranked from the worst to the best.
You all knew this movie was gonna be at the bottom. Emilia Perez is without a doubt the worst movie musical that I have ever seen. Everything that you have heard about how bad this movie is, that is true. The characters are all very one-dimensional and one-noted. The cinematography can be kinda nice, but it's very gross. The film is horribly racist on its display of Mexican culture. Not to mention, it's transphobic due to how the one trans character in this entire film isn't really transitioning because she wants to be a woman, but simply as a way to escape their sketchy past and start a new life. And while I am a cis man, so I can't really properly state how a trans woman should be displayed on the big screen or in any type of art whatsoever, I can say that her motives are incredibly stupid, and the fact that immediately, almost immediately, she decides to go back on her decision on changing her life around by faking her death just so she can be with her children again. It's incredibly stupid. Like, why the frick didn't you just fake your death to the world but still be with your wife and kids? Or better yet, why didn't you just leave the cartel? I mean, you were the head of it. It shouldn't be that hard to do. You didn't have to go through all of this bull crap, my guy. You literally just put yourself in the situation on purpose and now you want out. Like, this was on you completely. No one was making you do this. On top of all of that, the musical sequences in this film are stinkier than dog dookie. Pretty much every song either feels like it was written by AI, or they are horribly shot and just generally do not understand how to utilize song in the medium of film. Even the one that won a freaking Oscar is barely competent in terms of its cinematography, and literally none of the lyrics are anything to write home about unless they're laughably dumb, like the Sex Change song that went viral on TikTok. But perhaps the worst and most inexcusable thing about this film is the methods and how it was made. So, I'm pretty sure as you could gather from this movie that it is a foreign film. However, it is not from Mexico. This is from freaking France. This is a French film. Now, I want you at home to just sit and use your brains for just 2 seconds. But why on God's green earth is this French film featuring literally nothing but Spanish speaking actors set in Mexico about the cartel? And may I add that most of the actors aren't ethnically Mexican. And for the most part, throughout the entire film, they are speaking in some very broken Spanish. Again, I am not an expert on Mexican or Spanish culture, but. Huh? And all of those factors combined just make it completely baffling that not only was this movie universally praised by critics, but it was nominated for 13 Academy Awards. For this piece of crap? For this transphobic, racist piece of garbage with horrible music and really insensitive cultural significance to it? It's really horrible that this is the film that got all the attention from critics, especially when the lead of the film said some really suspicious things during award season. So yeah, if you get anything away from this video, Emilia Perez is not a good movie. And if you're wondering why this video took me so long to get out, this is why. Because it took me forever to get through this movie because it was so bad and I did not want to sit through the rest of it. I hated this. Not even in an ironic way. I just didn't like it. So, yes. Do yourself a favor and don't watch Emilia Perez.
Saw a monster in the mirror when I woke up today.
Spellbound probably pisses me off more than just about any other movie in this ranking, mainly because you know damn well that this movie was only made out of spite, and it doesn't even try to hide it, and doesn't even try to be entertaining. So Spellbound is the most recent film from Skydance Animation, and it's about this little girl who is a princess, and her mother and father, the king and queen, were turned into monsters. So she and the royal advisors had to run the kingdom for a year in secrecy because nobody else knows that the king and queen were turned into monsters. And this film is about trying to turn them back into humans, but using them being monsters as a metaphor for divorce, which goes about as well as you would think. The film, very sloppily divorce metaphor, makes it look like part of it is on the child, which I'm sure, as we all know, is never the intention. So the story is just all around messy with a very sloppily put together divorce metaphor. But hey, what about the songs? They did get Alan fucking Menken to write them. Well, these are probably some of his most boring and forgettable songs ever. You could put a gun to my head and threaten the life of my dog, and I still cannot tell you a damn note from any of these songs. They are so bland and so forgettable. Which is weird, given how this is the guy who made part of your fucking world. And speaking of people who have worked for Disney before, I guess it's time to mention the elephant in the room, isn't it? Yes, this movie was produced by the infamous former head of Walt Disney Animation Studios and Pixar, John Lasseter. In fact, it is his second film with Skydance Animation, following up 2022's Luck from Apple TV, although this is their first attempt at a musical and their first collaboration with Netflix. Luck was notable because that was Lasseter clearly trying to emulate what he lost with Pixar. This time, he is clearly trying to emulate what he lost with Disney. If you guys don't know anything about the Lasseter situation outside of him being a guy who used to work at Disney, Google it. I don't want to get into this video. The point is, it is just so sad just how much Lasseter is trying to get what he lost with this movie, because this film is so derivative of the type of films that Disney usually makes, to the point where it makes their newer animated musicals like Wish and Moana 2 look like they're masterpieces from the Disney Renaissance. It's that bad and as pitiful an attempt. And what's even worse is that it's from the guy who used to run it, and the fact that he's using his former Pixar clout to market the film. Not to mention, he managed to snag in several different Disney veterans to work on this film. He casted Rachel Zegler as the lead, Nathan Lane as one of the side characters. As I mentioned earlier, Alan Menken made the music. And one last comment on the songs. Isn't it a little weird that this musical with Alan Menken music chose to market itself with Don't Stop Believin' as opposed to its original songs? Probably because the songs suck and are really bad imitations of what Disney songs are usually like. And that is the best way to describe this film. A very bad, poor bootleg of a Disney film. And it's especially sad because, as I mentioned, Lasseter used to work for Disney. And when you look at every single other person in history who used to work for Disney Animation, Don Bluth, Jeffrey Katzenberg, they managed to leave Disney and create their own animation empires that stood out from the crowd and managed to make the movies that Disney wouldn't dare to make for a change. Where with Lasseter and Skydance Animation, he just tries to make Disney ripoffs. And that's pretty much what Skydance is at the most. Just a pale imitation of Disney. Nothing more, nothing less. But hey, at least the animation's nice.
It gives you magical unicorn mayonnaise.
Thelma the Unicorn is the most boring movie I've seen all year. Like, holy crap, this is the most generic animated film that has been released in several years. It's about this pony named Thelma who wants to become a rock star, but, she's just a simple farm pony. So she pretends to be a unicorn in order to get famous. And it's the exact type of fucking story you think it is. It's a generic, oh, be yourselves. You don't have to do whatever the other people want you to be. Just do yourself and everything will be okay, man. Like, you know exactly where this movie's going to go. She's going to let the fame get to her head a little bit. She's going to forget all about her friends, but her secret's gonna get revealed, and they don't love her anymore, but it's okay because she's doing what she loves, man. Yeah, you haven't even seen the movie, and you already know what this is gonna be about. I mean, yeah, some of the songs are fine, I guess, but literally none of them are really that special, and it's really annoying because the movie wants to make you think that Thelma is like this amazing songwriter when she makes some of the most generic songs I've heard since the shit I took last Tuesday. This type of story has been told like a million times, and the movie doesn't try to do anything new with this story at all. Not to mention, the character designs are fucking ugly. They look like if Big Mouth characters were designed by Tim Burton and then were rendered into CGI. It's fucking horrendous how bad this movie looks, especially with the humans. My God. So, yeah, Thelma the Unicorn, very bland, generic kids movie, but it kind of pisses me off on just how fucking boring it is.
Kimber the White Lion is his name.
Who would have thought that Mufasa the Lion King was a bad movie? Okay, in all fairness, this film is better than the 2019 live-action remake, but it is significantly flawed. For starters, I will admit that the animation is better than last time. For one thing, you can actually tell what the characters are supposed to be feeling in every scene, which sounds like character animation 101, but given on what we had last time, it's a significant improvement. Not to mention, the actual story that we have about how Mufasa became King of the Pride Lands is very fascinating. Plus, the new songs made by Lin-Manuel Miranda are all pretty good, and definitely what we were missing in Moana 2. But the bad stuff in this movie is so bad, so unbearable, that it completely ruins the film for me. For starters, the villain is kind of comically pathetic and not in the fun, traditional Disney villain type of way. The character work is just non-existent. Beyonce's daughter is in the movie, and you can tell because, damn, this girl can act. And Jesus Christ, Timon and Pumbaa are fucking annoying. Every time they come on screen, you're just like, Jesus Christ, just give me back to Mufasa. Stop making them tell some unfunny jokes. Yeah. While the bad stuff in this movie is horrendous, what works about this movie does work, but it doesn't save the movie from Timon and Pumbaa trying to do their MST3K routine.
We bring the boom! That's what we do!
So I don't really have a whole lot to say about Glitter and Doom. There's not really a whole lot to this movie, to be honest, but basically it's about these two artists that found each other. One's an aspiring songwriter and the other's an aspiring clown and circus performer. And basically, they just spend the whole summer together getting to know each other, but tension arises when it comes to furthering their careers and the approval of their parents. And honestly, I think that the most of this movie had going to it was its visual style. Visually, the movie does look really well, but in my opinion, it's kind of all style with no substance, because there's not a whole lot to the story in general. It really is just a kind of standard generic love story, with the only main difference compared to other ones that we've seen over and over and over again is that it's through a queer perspective, which is nice, but it is still a standard love story about artists at the end of the day. And on top of that, none of the songs really stuck with me. Like, none of the musical numbers really stood out visually to me either, and lyrically and musically, the songs are still rather bland, but the two lead actors do a fine job, and it's not a bad film by any stretch of the means. It just didn't really connect with me, but if it does for you, fine, whatever. It just doesn't really for me, but I would like to know, with this film in particular, what do you guys think?
What can I say except you're racist? Two black guys call the cops, tell a lie.
Moana 2, I think, is very fascinating because it's almost good. The movie gets very close to being a very enjoyable film, but it just keeps getting into certain elements that just keeps on knocking it down. And that is mainly due to the fact that the movie was supposed to be a Disney Plus series. And because of that, you can tell that all of the movie's ideas are a little too big for the movie. I mean, there have been some Disney sequels in the past that were meant to be TV shows, like Belle's Magical World and Atlantis Milo Returns, but while those were just a bunch of random episodes stitched together, this movie at least has a beginning, middle, and end. But it feels way too rushed because this was clearly meant to be like a 6 or 8 episode series on Disney Plus and was forced to be an hour and a half long movie. There are several scenes like them dealing with this giant clam or being trapped in this cave that clearly would have worked as individual episodes for a series, but because they're forced to be singular scenes in a full-length motion picture, the scenes end up becoming way too rushed and are not given enough time to develop at all. Not to mention, the new songs were very underwhelming. Lin-Manuel Miranda did not return to write these songs, and you can tell, because the grand majority of them tend to try to recapture the magic of the songs from the first movie, but they're not quite able to do so because Lin-Manuel Miranda has such a unique songwriting style. If I had a nickel for the amount of times Disney tried to recapture the success of Lin-Manuel Miranda, but without actually trying to get the man himself, I'd have 2 nickels. But I do like some parts of the film. I do like how they made Moana a little older and they gave her a little sister, something different from the first movie, and it has some added stakes. Plus, I do like the new side characters that were added into this film. They have a bunch of fun personalities. Plus, as expected from Disney, the animation is really good. But everything else is just kind of forgettable, and it really would have done the movie a favor if it was a Disney Plus series like originally planned, so that it could properly explore its story further. Not to say that the film is so bad it just has to be dumped on streaming, but the fact that it being a streaming series would have done this film's story so much better.
Philbot, please, come quick! Ultron is back all of a sudden! We gotta get everybody together, we gotta make sure that his robot army doesn't destroy the entire world!
Kermit, I'm in the middle of a video.
Wait,
But no buts. Just get out of here.
Gee.
Anyway, number 5.
You're a mean.
I feel like everybody and their grandma was just too harsh on this film when it initially came out, comparing it mostly to the original movie and saying, oh, it's not as good, so it's just downright trash. But now that a full year has passed since it came out and talk about this film has significantly died down, and that we can now look at it with unfiltered glasses, it's not great, but it's not necessarily awful either. There is plenty of things to enjoy about it, but okay, let's talk about them individually. Starters, I think the casting is fantastic. Every single one of these actors did a fantastic job. The actress who played Regina George on Broadway reprises her role in this film, and she's fantastic. All the different new actors are really great. I especially love the guy who plays Damien. I think he gives an amazing performance and tons of fun energy. And it was neat to see Tim Meadows and Tina Fey back in their respective roles. I will admit I wasn't a huge fan of Katie's actress. Not to say that she was bad, but compared to everybody else in the film and even some of the actresses that have played this character before, she was very underwhelming. The musical numbers I thought were shot really well. Loved the transitions between various different scenes within the songs, and the choreography and cinematography for all the numbers were really well done. Although I will admit that some of the songs were not handled very well. For whatever reason, half of the songs for the second half of the film were removed from the Broadway musical. And so there was a long gap between Revenge Party and the reprise of Somebody Gets Hurt, where there was just 0 songs. And for a musical where there was a pretty consistent amount of time on when there was going to be a song, you're kind of just sitting there wondering, okay, are we still doing a musical at this point? Because where's all the singing? And I'm not even going to get into some of the changes that they made to the music, in particular with Stupid with Love, because quite frankly, that's a conversation for another day, and I don't really mind it because it works in the context of the movie. But speaking of the music, it is worth noting that Paramount decided to not promote the fact that this was a musical at all, and instead just promote it as a new twist. Again, this is already a topic of conversation that was a pretty short-lived trend at the time, because the month prior in 2023, Warner Brothers did the same thing with Wonka and The Color Purple. It seemed to pay off for those movies, but later this same year, Wicked heavily promoted the fact that it was a musical, with the exception of its very first Super Bowl trailer, and that ended up becoming one of the biggest movies of the year. So take that, not promoting the fact that your musical movie is a musical. It can pay off if your movie is actually a musical. Overall, I just have to say that Mean Girls 2024 isn't bad. It has a lot of good things in it, but it's not the best thing in the world, and personally, I would just stick with the original movie, and while I've yet to watch the actual Broadway show, I feel like it's better. It's got more songs anyway, so that's a plus. So J-Lo released a visual album over on Amazon, and it was something. It definitely took me a good little bit into this movie to realize what the fuck was going on. And from what I was to gather, it's basically about Jennifer Lopez just going through all these relationships. And she doesn't need to do all this. She doesn't need to do all that. But there's also like the fucking personification of the zodiac signs throughout, and there's like Post Malone, Keke Palmer, a fucking Buddhist priest, Neil deGrasse Tyson. What the hell's going on here? I mean, I get it. It's a visual album. You're not really supposed to pay attention to like stuff that like that. I mean, it's just generally weird. That's the nature of the visual album as an art form. And you're kind of just supposed to vibe with it. But just judging this as a piece of art, J-Lo is bad at lip syncing. Oh my god, she just does not lip sync half of these songs. And the acting from everyone is just all around really static. Like, I get it, some of these aren't even professional actors. Like, they got a fucking rapper to play a therapist for some reason. Maybe they thought it was funny, but my god, this is some horrible miscasting. And again, there are several people that you would not typically cast as actors in a movie, let alone a musical, and it's just very jarring. Something else that was pretty jarring is the runtime. This movie is just a little bit over an hour, and yeah, the time definitely does go by pretty quickly, so I guess there's one thing about it that it's relatively short, but there are some really good aspects about it. Like, the story itself I thought was pretty entertaining, and the musical numbers are pretty well choreographed, and J-Lo's acting and singing is not bad. But overall, the movie, yeah, there's definitely better out there, but it's not a bad time.
I'm the Joker, baby!
Okay, this is probably going to be my biggest hear me out of the entire video, but I actually don't think that Joker Fully Ado was that bad of a movie. I know it sounds blasphemous to say, but I genuinely think that there's something to this movie that people just aren't seeing right now. But before I get into any positives, I would like to express some things that I have to admit I don't like about this movie. For instance, I think it kind of wastes the potential of a musical about the Joker. Because if there is any comic book character who could star in their own musical and it be freaking amazing, it could be the Joker, because the character in just about every iteration, including the 2019 film, he's a showmanship type of guy. He's very theatrical, so putting him in a musical, a big jazzy musical, would be perfect. And there are a couple musical moments that do take full advantage of, okay, the Joker's in a musical now. We got to have some pretty cool musical set pieces, but for the most part, the musical numbers are just Joaquin Phoenix just sitting in a room and singing out of key. That's another problem. Joaquin Phoenix can't sing. I get that they're trying to go for a little bit of a realistic approach to make a musical, which I don't know if you've noticed, but musicals and realism don't usually go hand in hand very much, especially since these are supposed to be fantasy sequences, so why can't the Joker sound like a completely different person when he's singing, especially when, for a majority of this movie, he claims to be a different person from Arthur? Not to mention, Joaquin Phoenix is the lead of the musical. He is one of two people who we hear sing in this entire film, so we have to hear him sing a lot. And the fact that they didn't even put in the effort to dub his voice, what the frick, man? What's wrong with you? Lady Gaga, she sounds great because she's a professionally trained singer, but you couldn't even check to see if Phoenix could sing before you went all out with the musical idea? I also wasn't a fan of this movie's interpretation of Harley Quinn, mainly because she's basically a completely different character. She's an original character just taking this name. She doesn't go by Harleen Quinzel in the film. She goes by Lean Quinzel. They can't even use the name Harley. Come on, movie. What's wrong with you? Between this and the Penguin using Oz Cobb, I mean, what is wrong with these names? These names are fine. You're based on freaking Batman, for Christ's sake. And while they did technically keep the fact that Harley is a doctor in this film, it never really comes up, and it only makes it sound like that Harley is manipulating Arthur, which is the complete opposite of how the story should be told and could be considered problematic, but that's a conversation for another day. So you might be wondering, well, why do I like this movie this much if I have this many problems with it? Well, I will admit, the film does have several redeeming elements for me. Some of the musical numbers, not all of them, are shot pretty well. The orchestrations are very nice, and the performance from Lady Gaga as Harley is still really good, despite some of my issues with her character. Not to mention, when Joaquin Phoenix is hamming it up as the Joker, it can be a lot of fun. Plus, I know a lot of people have their hot takes about the ending. I'm on the side that I actually do enjoy the ending of the film. It strays away from what we were expecting, but I think it does so in a pretty entertaining and interesting way. Plus, not to mention, the movie opens with a Looney Tunes cartoon, and I just think, on top of all the other weird stuff in this film, that's just a nice little cherry on top. Honestly, I should have and can make an entire video that's probably like an hour plus long, fully dissecting Joker Folie à Deux, everything that works and the many things about it that doesn't work, and just how I think that in a few years, maybe give it 10 years or so, maybe longer, maybe shorter, people are going to come around to this movie. It's going to be a cult classic, either ironically or unironically, one of the two, and people are going to enjoy this movie regardless in later years. I think this could either be a genuine, beloved cult classic in the ways of Rocky Horror Picture Show, or this could be the superhero equivalent of The Room. Who knows? Either way, I'm gonna have a blast watching this movie again in the future, because, like, this was something special, and we don't get movies that are big blockbusters like this one that try to do weird and experimental and risky stuff like this, especially with big named IP that you expect a lot out of. So even if it's objectively not good, I have to respect the movie for attempting to make risks, which God only knows is extremely rare in Hollywood these days.
That's all, folks.
It said the end, but it kept on going. What the hell? So this film's a little bit unconventional. The End is a post-apocalyptic musical about a group of people living in a bunker at the end of the world, and then mysteriously, a new person enters. Ooh. I will admit, the performances from all of these actors were very well done. I thought the acting was phenomenal from each and every one of them. Not a single one phoned in their performance. The story, however, is a generic can I trust you type of story. There's not a whole lot there. And most of the musical numbers aren't really anything to write home about. Some of them I think are really great. Like, some of the songs I think are very fun, very catchy, and a couple of the musical numbers themselves do have very fun set pieces, but we are just kind of stuck in the same location for the grand majority of the film. And for a musical, that's not very entertaining, at least in a movie. If this was on the stage, then yeah, this would have worked really well. But I think the fact that this is a movie musical is where it falls flat for me. And it's not to discredit any of the directors or the writers or any of the actors or anything like that. I just think that this was the wrong medium to tell this story. Because Tilda Swinton, she's phenomenal. She's Tilda Swinton, she's great in everything. All the other actors, they're great. I just think that if you took everything about this, put it on a stage, it would suddenly be 10 times better, and it'd be regarded as one of the best musicals in a while, and suddenly it would get a movie adaptation that everyone would think it sucks. And it's here. All the pieces are there. It's just that the stage musical doesn't exist, and all we have is this movie. Which, not bad, certainly a lot better than a lot of the other movies that came out this year, but it could have been so much better, especially being released by such an acclaimed studio like Neon. But otherwise, I wouldn't mind watching this one again.
However, there is still one other movie released that year that takes the cake for the best movie musical of 2024. Yeah, of course Wicked's number one. I mean, literally, what other movie could it have possibly been? Just about everything about this movie works. The storytelling is great, powerful, and impactful. The visuals look phenomenal. Oz has never felt more like a place I could actually be. The characters are all fun and entertaining, and the musical numbers are phenomenal and very well choreographed. I already did a full review of Wicked back when it first came out, but to go over some light criticisms I do have with the movie, I do believe as of now, since part 2 hasn't come out yet, that it could have stayed one movie. Maybe make it like a good 3-hour film, and you could include everything, but we're just going to have to wait till Wicked for Good comes out for me to fully say that statement. Plus, I feel like the coloring could be a bit brighter. Oz is one of the most beautiful places in all of fiction, so I would have liked to see a bit more of that Technicolor pop, you know? But other than that, I did really enjoy this film. I thought just about every single actor did their absolute best with the material. Even Ariana Grande, who a lot of people were skeptical of, but I knew from the start that she was going to be great as Glinda because she was really good in Hairspray Live, dang it. Not to mention there's a lot of political themes that can be talked about with this movie. I talked about it in my review. Again, go check that out if you haven't already. And a lot of the things that I'm saying here will be more detailed in the review, so please go watch it already. And while you're at it, please go watch Wicked. As I'm recording this, it's still in theaters. It just hit VOD. The Blu-ray's coming out in February. Please do yourself a favor and watch Wicked. And if you want a little teaser for part 2, watch the slime tutorial of the Broadway show on YouTube. Wicked Part 1 is a very great film. Fans of the musical will enjoy it. Fans of The Wizard of Oz will enjoy it. The movie is great all around. Highly recommend.
And with that, this was the first Theater Talk of 2025, and we're halfway through the year. Promise the next one won't take another 5 months. But until then, I will see you later. Bye!